Greetings, friends. There has been a huge amount of developments on the front today, so let's get started. Various pro-Russian sources reported that during the fighting the Russian army managed to force the Oskol River between the settlements of Krugliakovka and Senkovo. According to these reports, the Russian army has begun to form a bridgehead on another section of the Oskol River, just south of the settlement. Similar activities had previously been carried out west of the Toretsk settlement, in the area of Lyman Pervii and Senkovo. Here the Russian army managed to create a fairly wide bridgehead, but the Ukrainian side is conducting counterattacks. Today, information has been received about another river crossing, but already to the south of Kupiansk. If this information is confirmed, there is a high probability that the Russian army will soon try to take Kupiansk in pincers from the north and from the south. Now to the issue of intelligence information. In my understanding, if the Ukrainian side has lost the ability to receive data on the concentration of units of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, as well as information on the transfer of personnel, this is one of the most serious blows inflicted on Ukraine. I would like to remind you that the entire Sujin operation apparently occurred because Ukrainian formations managed to secretly transfer a significant number of troops to the border and suddenly attack an area where this strike was not expected. Now it seems that the Russian side has gained similar capabilities to stealthily move large units from one section of the front to another and launch surprise strikes. This could lead to the collapse of the front and, in the long run, to the collapse of the entire defense of Ukraine, not just certain areas like Sujin, Kupiansk, Chasiv Yar, and so on. The situation in Senkovo may already be a consequence of the loss of intelligence data by the Ukrainian side. We will closely follow the development of events. As for the evening of March 6th, the information about the Oskol crossing in the second place has so far been confirmed only by pro-Russian sources. We are waiting for additional data from neutral observers. If this is confirmed, we can say that the battle for Kupiansk is taking on a strategically important character and the fighting will only escalate in the near future. Now to the northeastern direction, in the area of Toretsk settlement. According to neutral cartographers, the armed forces of Ukraine continued counterattacks, as a result of which they managed to regain control over several forest areas between the western part of the area and Toretsk. However, it should be borne in mind that, despite this data, the opposite information was received today. It is possible that the initial information was erroneous. We will continue to follow the development of the situation. Then we move on to the North Kupiansk direction, from where a significant amount of news is also coming. The Sujin direction is also being actively discussed today in various sources. Since the very morning, there have been numerous publications, mostly from pro-Ukrainian sources, which may already be starting to sound the alarm or even calling on the Ukrainian command to withdraw units from the potential encirclement. Over the last 24 hours, a lot of geolocation footage from this direction has been published, mostly showing FPV drone strikes on Ukrainian armed forces equipment. Pay attention to this video. This is one of the last two remaining roads of life that Ukraine still controls to supply and support the Ukrainian armed forces grouping on the territory of the Sujin protrusion. However, if we look at this footage, literally every 10 to 20 meters we can see burning or destroyed AFU equipment. This indicates that the Russian Federation has established full fire control over the main supply routes leading from Sumy region towards Sudzha. Fighting is also continuing on the territory of the locality of Malaya Lakhnya. Today, by the way, there is a European summit scheduled for March 6th. Zelensky flew to the summit, and perhaps the increased activity of the armed forces of the Russian Federation almost along the entire line of contact is connected with this summit. If we summarize and look at the Sujin direction from the other side, we can assume with high probability that the situation here in the near future will begin to change with extremely high dynamics. However, for now the Ukrainian armed forces still have a bridgehead, for which they are trying to hold on to, despite all the losses they suffer on a daily basis. It is obvious that the main goal of the Russian Federation is not so much the destruction of the AFU personnel, but rather the disabling of as much equipment as possible. Further on, we are moving towards the southern Kupiansk direction. Here the clearing of populated areas such as Zareknoye and Torskoy continues. The armed forces of the Russian Federation have established full fire control, laying siege to Ukrainian units in 2 villages. The main task is to isolate these units, leave them without supplies, and the Russian army is likely to launch an offensive in the near future. The next direction is Konstantinovskoye. Here the armed forces of Ukraine, despite adverse weather conditions, are urgently trying to build a defense line opposite the village of Konstantinovka. The footage shows a Ukrainian tractor digging another ditch and another trench right in front of the area of possible attack of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. It can be seen that the AFU is trying to build a defense line already 25 kilometers from Konstantinovka and about 6 kilometers from the forward positions of Russian troops. It is not surprising that any equipment entering the open fields is instantly destroyed. In fact, there is no solid line of defense here, or it is not dense enough, as the Ukrainian command might want it to be. Gradually, the village of Chasiv Yar is turning into a second Volchansk, and the AFU's defensive lines are being razed to the ground. However, judging by the fact that the Ukrainian army is now trying to build fortifications around Konstantinivka, it can be assumed that the main purpose of the battles for Chasiv Yar and Toretsk is to gain time, which the Ukrainian side will probably try to use to build fortifications. However, time has apparently already passed, and it is unlikely that it will be possible to build full-fledged defensive lines. There is also information about the situation in Toretsk. Despite the fact that the initiative in this direction is in the hands of the Russian Federation, the armed forces of Ukraine continue to attempt a counteroffensive. Over the past 24 hours, according to neutral cartographers, the AFU managed to regain control over the northern mine, an object for which the Russian army had been fighting for about a month. During one of the counterattacks, the AFU managed to regain control of the site. There is no geolocation confirmation yet, but information is already spreading online. Perhaps, in the near future there will be footage of objective control. According to the same neutral cartographers, the Russian army, in order to avoid encirclement, began a gradual withdrawal of its units from the northern and northwestern parts of Toretsk in order to consolidate its forces in the area of Shakhty Central, the center of the city. It is likely that the Russian army will try to stabilize the situation, repel the attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces, and subsequently launch a counteroffensive to finally clear the settlement. Next we are moving towards Vozdvizhenka and the N32 highway. The situation here is similar. The Ukrainian armed forces have carried out a series of counterattacks towards Baranivka, Vodyanoy Toroy, as well as strikes on Zelenoy Poly. 4 days ago, Ukrainian sources published objective control footage of short-range strikes on Russian army positions. This footage was shot in this very area, where a Ukrainian tank shelled the forward positions of the Russian troops. There is a high probability that the village of Zelenoy Poly is already under full control of the Ukrainian armed forces. Thus, the Ukrainian side is trying to attack Toretsk and Vozdvizhenka to push back Russian units and prevent strikes from the west and east in the direction of the Klebenbyk reservoir. We are moving on to the locality of Pokrovsk, where the main fighting is taking place at the base of a small protrusion, Kotelno, Yudaknoy, Ospanovka, Shevchenko. Today the armed forces of the Russian Federation continued mopping up the bridgehead that the armed forces of Ukraine may have managed to establish in the southeastern part of the locality. Let me remind you that yesterday the map changed in favor of the Ukrainian army. A successful counterattack was carried out, as a result of which the Ukrainian soldiers managed to occupy the southeastern part of the Shevchenko settlement. The equipment was abandoned and the infantry carried out a mop-up operation, first destroying the enemy's equipment. It is possible that assault actions are underway at the moment. The situation is similar in the southwestern part of the area. Fierce fighting continues for the village of Ospanovka, which can change hands several times during the day. As of the evening of March 6th, there is information that the eastern and central parts of the settlement are either in the gray zone or remain disputed territory, and it is impossible to say exactly who controls this area. Next, we are moving towards the Bogotyrsky direction. Today, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed full control over the settlement of Andriivka. There are already various reports that, due to the fall and final clearing of this stronghold, there is a high probability that the armed forces of Ukraine will leave the settlement of Konstantinopol in the coming night, retreating towards Bogodar and Rozliv. Thus, the hostilities in this area are gradually coming to a logical conclusion. Some neutral cartographers also record changes in the southern direction. Russian troops have entered the territory of the village of Volnoy Pol. Let me remind you that as recently as yesterday the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed the clearing of Privolnoy. Today, however, there is information about the further advance of Russian forces in the northwestern direction. It is obvious that the Russian army does not intend to stop, and the pace of the offensive is only gaining momentum. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, more and more objective monitoring footage is being received from the village of Guliapoli. It is reported that several temporary deployment sites of the headquarters of the armed forces of Ukraine have been destroyed. Further on, we are moving towards the West Zaporizhzhia and Kherson directions. Over the past night, the Iskander missile system struck a hotel in the village of Krivoy Rog. Later, Zelensky himself confirmed that the strike hit the hotel at the moment when foreign volunteers from France, the UK, and Ukraine were there. However, according to him, the group managed to evacuate in time. Despite this, Zelensky said that there were still casualties among those who were there. In addition, Russian Federation continues to carry out massive strikes on Odessa, as well as on its port infrastructure. Today the strikes were recorded in the settlement of Yuzhny. A large number of explosions and destroyed warehouses are reported. Apparently, the Russian side has reliable information about storage sites for military equipment, including possibly drones. These sites are currently being destroyed by Russian missile forces and aviation. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching us. Subscribe to the channel, put likes, and have a good day.